My estranged son dropped Sophie at my doorstep with a smirk. "She's your headache now, Mom." As I looked into my granddaughter's frightened eyes, I realized this was more than just a family spat. He had no idea the whirlwind he had just unleashed. The morning light filtered through the curtains, painting dappled patterns on the wooden floor. I stood by the window, feeling the warmth on my face, lost in memories. This room, with its antique furniture and portraits of generations gone by, was a constant reminder of the life I once shared with Richard. Every item told a story. The grand piano where Richard would play our favorite tunes, the chandelier under which we had danced on countless occasions, and the silverware that had served guests at our many parties. But Richard was gone now, and the house once filled with laughter, now echoed with silence. I picked up a photograph from the table, a relic from happier times. It was a picture of a young me, cradling James as a toddler. His bright eyes and infectious smile were a stark contrast to the distant, strained relationship we shared now. How had we grown so apart? Trying to shake off the melancholy, I walked into my sanctuary, the art studio. It was in this room, surrounded by canvases and paints, that I felt most alive. I lost myself in the swirl of colors, pouring my emotions onto the canvas. Teaching painting at the local community center had also become a source of solace. It was heartwarming to see the excitement in my students' eyes, their earnest attempts to capture beauty on canvas. Their admiration and respect were a balm to my lonely heart. The shrill ring of the telephone interrupted my reverie. Calls were a rarity in this house, and I approached the phone with a mix of curiosity and dread. But when I heard the voice on the other end, a wave of emotions washed over me. It was James. The voice on the other end of the line was unmistakable, even after all these years. "Mother, it's James." I felt a whirlwind of emotions, surprise, joy, and apprehension. "James," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's been a while." There was a pause filled with years of unsaid words and unaddressed grievances. "Yes," he finally said. "It has." James went on to explain his recent job transfer and the need to move closer. The familiar tone of hesitancy in his voice hinted at more than just a casual update. As we continued our conversation, the underlying tension was palpable. I was thinking, maybe Emily, Sophie, and I could visit for a few days. James asked tentatively. The thought of their visit filled me with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. It had been years since I had seen my son, let alone met my granddaughter Sophie. As for Emily, our last encounter had been less than pleasant. I agreed, trying to sound more enthusiastic than I felt. "Of course, James, it'll be good to see you all." The days leading up to their visit were a flurry of activity. I wanted everything to be perfect, from the freshly baked cookies to the meticulously arranged guest rooms. But deep down, I couldn't shake off the unease. When they arrived, the initial greetings were awkward. James seemed older, warier. Emily's aloofness was evident, and young Sophie looked overwhelmed. Over dinner, the conversation was stilted, filled with superficial niceties. But as the evening wore on and we settled into the living room, the veneer began to crack. James and Emily's subtle exchanges, their veiled comments, hinted at underlying issues. Financial troubles, perhaps. I tried to focus on Sophie, who, despite her initial shyness, was warming up to me. Her youthful innocence was a welcome distraction from the mounting tension. As the night drew to a close and they retired to their rooms, I was left with a sinking feeling. The visit meant to bridge gaps seemed to be unveiling deeper rifts. The house was filled with an almost tangible tension the next morning. I could hear Emily's sharp whispers from the guest room, but couldn't make out the words. It was clear that they were facing some financial challenges. Their hushed conversations, the way Emily's gaze darted towards certain expensive items in the house, and James's evasive eyes spoke volumes. During breakfast, I mustered the courage to ask James, "Is everything okay?" He looked up startled, and then glanced at Emily. "It's just some unexpected expenses." He began trailing off. Emily interjected, "We've been hit with some unexpected bills, and, well, we were hoping you could help us out." "How much do you need?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. After a moment's hesitation, James replied, $8,000. I know it's a lot, but I was taken aback. That was a significant amount. "I'll need some time to think about it," I told them. The day continued in an awkward dance of avoidance, but it was in the late afternoon when I stumbled upon a scene that left me deeply unsettled. I had gone upstairs to fetch a book from my room and found Sophie rifling through my jewelry box. She looked up, her eyes filled with fear and guilt. "Grandma, come here, dear," I said softly, guiding her to sit beside me on the bed. "What's going on?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "Mommy said we need to find things to sell." I felt a rush of emotions, anger, sadness, and confusion. But before Sophie could say more, James appeared at the door, his face pale. "Mother, can I speak with you?" he asked, his voice tight. I nodded, looking back at Sophie, who seemed on the verge of tears. "It's all right," I whispered to her. "We'll sort this out." But as I followed James downstairs, I couldn't help but feel that things were about to take a darker turn. In the sitting room, the dim glow from the evening sun painted the walls with soft hues of orange and yellow. James stood by the fireplace, his posture tense, his gaze avoiding mine. "What's happening, James?" I asked. My heart ached to see my son so distressed. He took a deep breath, his fingers playing with the edge of the mantelpiece. "I lost my job, Mother. We've been living off savings, but they're almost gone." I felt a pang of sympathy, but also confusion. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" he sighed. "Pride, I guess. I didn't want you to worry." And then there were the threats. My blood ran cold. "Threats?" James nodded. "Loan sharks. I made some bad investments. Borrowed money thinking I could turn things around." I sat down trying to process everything. "And Emily? Sophie?" He looked down. "Emily's been trying to find work, but it's been tough. And Sophie, she's been caught in the middle. We told her to look for things to sell, thinking we could buy some time." Tears welled in my eyes. "How had things gotten so dire? James, why didn't you come to me sooner?" He looked up, tears glistening in his eyes. "I was ashamed, Mother. I didn't want you to see me fail." We sat in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on us. The next morning I reached out to an old friend, Isabel Foster. A retired detective, she had a sharp mind and a wealth of contacts. She listened intently as I recounted everything. After a pause she said, "Madeline, we need to be careful. If these people are as dangerous as you say, we need evidence. Let's set a trap." With her guidance, we set up a security system complete with hidden cameras throughout the house. If James and Emily tried anything, we'd catch them red-handed. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to see a different side of Emily. Her cold demeanor melted away, revealing a woman under immense pressure. She confided in me about her struggles, her regrets, and her dreams for Sophie's future. One evening, as we sat in the garden, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Madeline, I never wanted any of this. I just wanted a better life for Sophie." I took her hand, realizing that sometimes life's twists and turns could lead us down paths we never imagined. Isabel and I had been meticulous with our plans. Every corner of the house was equipped with hidden cameras, and every possible entry point was monitored. She believed that if James and Emily were desperate enough, they might attempt a theft. But as the days went by, my doubts grew. Perhaps we had misjudged them. One evening as I was preparing dinner, I heard a commotion upstairs. I cautiously ascended the stairs, my heart racing. From the hallway I could hear muffled voices. Following the sound, I approached my bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. Through the gap, I saw a figure rifling through my drawers. It wasn't James or Emily, but a stranger. A man I had never seen before. Panic gripped me, but then I remembered the cameras. Every move he made was being recorded. Suddenly there was a crash from the other end of the house. Isabel had returned earlier than expected and caught another intruder in the act. I heard her commanding voice ring out, "Stay where you are." The man in my room bolted, shoving past me, but Isabel was prepared. She tackled him at the top of the stairs, and together we restrained both intruders until the police arrived. The ensuing investigation revealed a shocking twist. The men were hired by the loan sharks to whom James owed money. They had been sent to retrieve a debt by any means necessary. They had been watching the house, waiting for an opportunity. The evidence from our cameras was irrefutable, and both men were arrested. James and Emily were horrified, having had no idea of the depths the loan sharks would sink to. The incident drew our family closer together. James, realizing the gravity of his mistakes, began attending financial counseling and seeking legitimate employment at Met. Emily, grateful for a second chance, became an active part of Sophie's life, ensuring she had every opportunity for success. The bonds that had been strained started to mend, but there were still challenges ahead. The aftershock of the ambush was felt deeply throughout the house. Sophie was more reserved than ever, often spending hours in her room with her sketchbook. One day, while cleaning out the attic, I stumbled upon a box of old family photos. Thinking they might bring some comfort to Sophie, I invited her to join me in a trip down memory lane. As we sat on the dusty attic floor, I began recounting tales of her father's childhood, of summer vacations and family gatherings. Sophie's eyes lit up with each story, finding solace in the knowledge that her father was once a carefree boy, much like her. However, buried amidst the happy memories was a series of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. They were correspondence between my late husband and a woman named Clara. As I read through them, I realized they dated back to a time before James was born, revealing a side of my husband I had never known. Clara, it seemed, was a love from his youth, a relationship that had ended abruptly and without closure. The letters spoke of deep affection, dreams, and plans for the future. My heart ached, not out of jealousy, but out of sorrow for the love they had lost. Seeing the pain in my eyes, Sophie gently took my hand. "Grandma," she whispered, "everyone has a past. It doesn't change how much he loved you." Together we decided to find Clara, not to reopen old wounds, but to offer her the closure she deserved. Our search led us to a quiet coastal town, where Clara, now in her 70s, ran a small art gallery. The reunion was bittersweet. Clara had never married, always holding on to the hope that one day they would be reunited. Hearing of his passing, she was heartbroken, but grateful for the chance to finally say goodbye. As we departed, Clara handed Sophie a painting. It was a portrait of my husband as a young man, a testament to their enduring love. "Take this," she said, tears in her eyes. "Remember that love, even when lost, can leave behind something beautiful." We returned home with a new understanding of our family's history and a renewed sense of purpose. Sophie, inspired by Clara's art, began to channel her emotions into her sketches, finding healing in the process. The days turned into weeks, and Sophie grew more comfortable around me. We found solace in each other's company, often sharing stories or taking long walks in the garden. One evening, while we sat in the living room sipping tea, Sophie hesitated, then finally spoke up. "Grandma," she began, her voice quivering, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been hiding." I set my tea down, giving her my full attention. "You can tell me anything, dear." She took a deep breath. "I overheard a conversation between my parents a few weeks before we came here. They were arguing about money, and I heard my father mention something about a debt and threats." My heart sank. This confirmed my worst fears about James's situation. I gently probed, "Do you know who he owes money to?" She nodded slowly. "It's a man named Victor. He's dangerous, Grandma. He once came to our house and I saw him. He threatened my parents and said if they didn't pay him back, he'd come after me." Tears welled up in her eyes as she continued, "That's why I was searching your room that day. I wanted to find something valuable to give to Victor to keep him away from our family." I pulled her into a comforting embrace, my mind racing. "We'll figure this out together," I whispered, trying to calm her fears. Over the next few days, I discreetly made inquiries about this Victor. With the help of my friend Isabel, I learned that he was a notorious loan shark known for his ruthless tactics. James had borrowed money from him for a failed business venture, leading to the current crisis. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Instead of confronting Victor directly, I sought legal counsel, gathering evidence of his illicit activities. With the combined efforts of Isabel and a few other trusted allies, we were able to build a solid case against him. Meanwhile, Sophie and I worked on strengthening our bond. She began to confide in me more, and I did my best to support her, ensuring she felt safe and protected. In the heart of my family, we found strength and love to overcome any obstacle. In the heart of my home, surrounded by family photos and memories, I met with Isabel and a private investigator named Alex. Together, we reviewed all the evidence we had on Victor and his operations. The goal was clear: to bring him to justice and protect Sophie from any harm. "We need to lure him into a trap," Alex said, examining the documents spread out before us. "But it needs to be done carefully. This man is dangerous." Isabel chimed in. "What if we use the debt as bait? Offer to settle it in person?" I contemplated for a moment. "Yes, but we need to ensure he comes alone and doesn't suspect anything." Alex proposed an idea. "We could set up a meeting at a neutral location, with surveillance in place. Once he arrives and incriminates himself, we can have the authorities arrest him." The plan seemed solid. Over the next few days, we meticulously prepared for the sting operation. A secluded warehouse was chosen as the location, with hidden cameras and microphones installed. The local police were briefed and agreed to intervene at the right moment. With everything in place, I made the call to Victor, disguising my voice. I offered to settle the debt in exchange for James's safety and the assurance that he would leave Sophie alone. Victor, sensing an opportunity, greedily agreed. The day of the meeting was tense. I sat in a van nearby watching the live feed with Alex and Isabel. As Victor entered the warehouse, his every move was captured. He was alone, just as we had hoped. The conversation between Victor and the undercover officer posing as a representative on my behalf was incriminating. He openly discussed the threats against James and Sophie, and even hinted at other illegal activities. Suddenly, the warehouse was flooded with lights. Officers stormed in, apprehending Victor. The trap had been successful. The aftermath was a blur of relief and gratitude. Victor was taken into custody, facing multiple charges. The evidence we gathered ensured he would be behind bars for a long time. With the threat neutralized, I returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. It was time to confront James and Emily about their actions and decide the future of our family. The soft glow of the evening sun streamed through the living room windows, casting a warm hue over the room. I sat on the aged leather couch, surrounded by family, feeling grateful for the safety and justice that had been achieved. Surrounded by the familiar scent of old books and memories, I took a deep breath, mentally preparing myself for the confrontation that awaited. James and Emily sat across from me, their faces a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The air was thick with tension, as we all knew the time had come to address the elephant in the room. "James," I began, my voice firm but gentle, "I'm well aware of the threats Victor made against you and Sophie. Why didn't you come to me sooner?" James's eyes darted downwards, shame evident on his face. "I thought I could handle it, Mom. I didn't want to burden you further." Emily interjected, her voice shaky. "We never wanted any of this. We were desperate, and Victor seemed like the only way out." I sighed, feeling a weight on my shoulders. "You should have trusted me. Both of you. Instead, you put Sophie at risk." Sophie, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped forward. Her face was a mask of determination, her posture defiant. "Grandma, I want to live with you. I can't be around them anymore." James's face crumbled at his daughter's words, the pain evident in his eyes. "Sophie," Emily, tears streaming down her face, whispered, "we never meant to hurt you." I looked at Sophie, her resolve unwavering. Then turning to James and Emily, I said, "Your actions have consequences. It's clear that Sophie needs a stable environment, away from the chaos you've brought into her life." As the night wore on, we discussed the future. It was decided that Sophie would stay with me, while James and Emily would seek counseling to address their issues. Their relationship had been strained for a long time, and it was evident that they needed help. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and adjustments. I became Sophie's official guardian, ensuring she had the support she needed. James and Emily, though initially resistant, started attending therapy, working on rebuilding their relationship. Despite the pain and betrayal, our family began to heal. The bonds of love and trust, though tested, remained unbroken. There was hope for a better future, and together, we would face it, head-on. The following months brought significant changes to our lives. The grand old house, once echoing with loneliness, was now filled with the laughter and energy of Sophie. Together, we rediscovered the joy of simple pleasures, gardening, reading, and afternoon tea, in the sunlit garden. One day, as I was tending to the roses, Isabel paid me a visit. She had been a pillar of support throughout the ordeal, and her presence always brought comfort. Madeline, she began, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I've heard about a scholarship program at Street Claire's Academy. It's a prestigious school and Sophie has the talent to get in. It would be a fantastic opportunity for her. I contemplated the idea, thinking about Sophie's future. She had been through so much, and she deserved every chance to succeed. Let's do it, I replied with determination. Sophie deserves the best. Sophie's application to Street Claire's was a success. The day we received the acceptance letter, our joy knew no bounds. Sophie was ecstatic, her dreams slowly turning into reality. The day of her departure to the school dormitory arrived all too soon. As I watched her pack, I felt a pang of sadness. Yes, I knew this was a step towards her bright future. We drove to the academy, the sprawling campus taking my breath away. The majestic old buildings, the lush green lawns, and the air of scholarly pursuit were awe-inspiring. Sophie clung to me, tears in her eyes. I'll miss you, Grandma. I'll miss you too, darling. But remember, this is just the beginning of a wonderful journey. I'm always here for you. As I watched her walk towards her new life, my heart swelled with pride. The challenges we faced had only made us stronger, and I knew Sophie would conquer any obstacle in her path. In the quiet solitude of my home, I often found myself reflecting on the past events. The betrayals, the pain, the love, and the hope. Life was a tapestry of emotions, each thread intertwined with another, creating a beautiful mosaic. The story of our family was one of resilience and love. Through all the trials and tribulations, we emerged stronger, our bonds unbreakable. As I sipped my evening tea, watching the sunset, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. For the lessons learned, the love shared, and the promise of new beginnings.